So if you aren't sure of where you are, we are at the Northeast Washington Fire Recovery first initial meeting. And we're going to talk about why we're here, why we're in the room, what we're going to talk about, what we're not going to talk about. But first off, I would like to go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves. We're going to make the introductions short because your content area that you're going to be adding to the meeting will come out when we talk about the subject. So I'd like you to say your name and who you're representing and where you live in the region, or don't. How's that? So I'm Deborah Hanson, and I'm the WSU Stevens County Extension Director, and I'm officed here across the hall, and I'm really happy to be facilitating this meeting.
Mike Metlow, Spokane Drive.
What's the first Stevens County Commissioner?
Amanda Six, WSU County.
Mike Bandis, Monterey County Commissioner. Mike White, Monterey County Commissioner.
Chris Moody with Washington State Department of Agriculture Animal Services.
Nancy Paul, and the Stevens County Disaster Relief Coordinator.
Okay. I'm Rich Bergstrom. I'm with Red Cross, as well as my other hat is with the Stevens County Disaster Relief Group.
Dave Wyndham, Northeast Tri-County Public Health. David Nielsen, Northeast Washington Alliance Counseling Services.
Abby Fraser from Cholula, Small Forest Landowner.
Zach Beard, Veterans Conservation.
Can you say that again?
Zach Beard, Veterans Conservation.
Veterans Conservation Group.
Dean Helly, Stevens County Conservation District.
Mario Flora, and I'm Director of Music, Forest Owner, Permaculturist.
We're going to have to talk loud because we've got some people online, so everybody project their movie voice.
John Smith, Caldwell Chamber of Commerce Economic Development Committee Chair.
Catherine Rowden, hydrologist from the National Weather Service. Or Merrill Association of Friends.
Okay, and we have some people online, so why don't we do Mike first?
Hi, I'm Mike Jensen. I'm with WSU Extension in Ponderay County.
And Linda? Oh, Linda looks like...
Caldwell Reservation Extension.
Okay, great. And is somebody else on the phone?
Yes, Mike Bullard, Chair, Inland Northwest VOED.
Thank you. Anybody else? It looks like I have one more phone caller in.
Yeah, this is Gino Grandinet, Washington Emergency Management Division. I'm the Individual Assistance Manager.
Thank you. And am I missing anybody else? Oh, we've got some other people that came in the room. Debbie, can you introduce yourself?
Debbie Carringer, Caldwell Chamber of Commerce.
Rob Wilford with Fed. Nils Johnson, WSU Extension Ag Program Coordinator.
Kim Stell, Congresswoman at North Rogers.
And Adina, you didn't introduce yourself.
Oh, Adina Stevens. I'm transcriptionist.
Transcriptions. Okay, did I get everybody introduced? Okay, so this meeting started in a very short conversation. Oh, then one more? Introduce yourself.
There's two more.
Okay.
Representative Short, I'm on the district.
Okay. And someone else sneaking in?
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
And introduce yourself, please.
RJ Keach, City Hall.
Okay. So just so you know, we are recording this, and it is on Zoom, so we've got some people that are at a distance. Part of it is, since this happened so quickly and it's kind of grown a little bit, there are some people that aren't in the room that maybe should be in the room or wanted to be in the room and couldn't. So we are archiving it, and I will send that up. So this particular meeting started, I believe, from a very small conversation with a few people about how do we develop a recovery local group and communications about what's happening. This is a community-based recovery group that's going to be focused on communication and coordination, not on control. We're not trying to control everybody's efforts in recovery. The federal government, the states, the regions, anybody that's doing recovery efforts, this is not our attempt to run the world. What we're trying to do is make sure that as these things happen and opportunities come up and resources start showing up or are available, we want to make sure that people know about them. So I believe that it's about coordination and communication. So is everybody okay with that right now? Because I don't want you to be confused about us taking over the world and other organizations. Everybody okay?
Yep.
Okay, good. So we've had our introductions, but let's have some other thoughts about why we're here, because I did not start this conversation. I just agreed to facilitate it. So I know John and Wes were in on this earlier. Are there other things that you want to do in this, why we're here? What was the vision for being in this room?
So I guess I'll start just to give a little bit of background. So last year, the Colville Chamber and a number of local area churches and others were heavily involved in providing resources and supplies for the recovery from the Carlton Complex fires. So what had happened there is the Red Cross had set up, anticipating that the town of Brewster would be lost, they had set up in a place so that the residents of the town of Brewster had to drive a long ways to get any sort of relief supplies for the first week. And so because private citizens stepped up and were able to save the town, it meant that there were literally hundreds of people who were displaced, had lost their homes. The entire town of Pateros burnt down or close to it. And so we helped in providing aid to that. Well, there's you could almost say that what we participated in was triage, because we kept people's bellies full and gave them their immediate needs, but long term they needed a much broader recovery plan. And so in Okanogan County, they formed the Okanogan County Fire Recovery Group, and essentially that group was much like those of us sitting here, where they came together. They discussed the needs within the community, and then they essentially prioritized and pre-negotiated how they would go after those needs. It wasn't an issue of controlling who would do what. It was more an issue of coordinating and then helping to focus the ask when it came to communication with FEMA, with other branches of the federal government, and with the state government. And as a result, I spoke with one of the main organizers of that group, and they were able to directly bring into Okanogan County, after those initial fires, several $1 million in state and federal aid. And they broadened programs, which actually Stevens County is currently benefiting from some of the work that was done in that recovery action last year. They confessed that they basically stumbled into it, and they were so far behind when they started that there was more that they didn't do than that they did. And so now that we're looking at a catastrophe that isn't just Okanogan County, but is Chelan County, is Pend Oreille County, is Stevens, Ferry, even a little bit of northern Spokane County, now Okanogan County has created a template. They know what they need to do. They know which doors to knock on better. And we're in a position now to approach all of those state, federal, or other agencies, not as a single county or as a single organization, but more as a coalition from a region. And so what I was encouraged from Okanogan County is, we've done this, we've created the template, we know how to do it, we're willing to work with you, but they don't know what we need. They don't know our specific needs are different from what their specific needs are. And so what I had hoped could come from these conversations is the development of our own organization, an understanding, or at least to begin the conversation for us to talk about what we do need, to analyze what we already have, and then talk about other people that need to come to this table so that we can develop a plan moving forward. Because as Representative Short knows, it is possible that we could still see legislative action before the end of this year. Hope not, but it's possible. And there is always the possibility for things to happen in DC, as unlikely as many of us think that something happening in DC might be. And so we need to have a united voice rather than having a dozen separate voices. We can be much louder, and we can project our needs a lot better. So our hope is to begin this conversation, to develop an organization, and perhaps begin to develop that voice and that plan moving forward.
You have any thoughts, Wes? I know you were.
I guess I would just add that, looking at what the situation that we're in, I mean, the fire is the immediate concern, but it's not the total disaster. We have a lot of months ahead of us to get out of this, and to the extent that we can bring everybody one table working together and not let people fall through the cracks, that's what I was at.
Okay. Okay, so now we know why we're here. We also know that there are people, like I said, that would have liked to have been here that couldn't make it. So this is not an exclusionary group. So the recovery planning begins before the incident is over. So we've got fires that are burning right now. But like John said, if we can get ahead of the game and start talking about what information and resources are needed, that's what we're trying to do. And this is the community organization for that. And Okanagan County has a 501c3 organization that works on this. And we can talk about whether we want to work under them or create our own. That's a whole nother kind of long-term conversation. But we're going to be able to learn from their lessons learned last year and how to keep moving forward. So this is I look at it as a short-term, 3 to 5 year lifetime effort on this, because this is not the first and or last time this is going to happen, and we can work on preparedness issues after we tell some of these other issues. So this is a group that can maybe affect some change on how we do things in the future. So I see it as a connection between the local resources, the Red Cross, the emergency planners, the agencies that we have here, our state agencies, and our national agencies. So we're going to look at a way to help everybody connect together. For communication, cooperation, coordination, and collaboration. So all of those key words that we like, but none of that control stuff, because everybody that's doing their agency stuff, they're good, and they're good at what they do. So we need to not get in their way, but also know how to communicate it out. In times of crisis, the communication part is very difficult because people are displaced and confused and anxious and overwhelmed. And we're going to try to help keep that calm and move forward. Now, I'm pulling a lot of this stuff. Since I was asked to facilitate this meeting, I've been getting a lot of emails from people. And there is a way to organize a community-based group. So that's what I've been pulling some of this information off. Anything that you see up here that you disagree with, just make sure and let me know. I'm just trying to figure out how we put some form to this. So we do want to alleviate suffering, not just the short term, but the long term on people. We right away think about the trees, the land, and the animals in the homes, but we also have families and kids in crisis and stress-related problems. So we want to make sure that the health of our families and our people move forward. So not just the economics of their experience. So we're going to coordinate services and coordinate something else. That big blank coordination. But there's also, so think about some of the things that we can plan for, like preparedness for the next round of firestorms, or training. How do we get information out to people about how to take care of their animals or their lands or their soil erosion or things that will happen? So I think we can start identifying some of those out of this group too. Everybody still okay? All right. So who should participate? So we've talked about everybody in this room. Are we missing other people, or who else do you think needs to be in the room that's not here? Yes.
Yes. A lot of things are happening. I actually have a couple of hats. I'm with the Red Cross, and we're doing the Red Cross things. We also have a group that got put together today that with the we have Tri-County Health, Habitat and Humanities, the Ministerial Association, plus this group that we put together sort of underneath the county commissioners, since they said, okay, all the things are going into the fairgrounds, that we call ourselves Stevens County Disaster Relief Group, that we're sort of put together, organizing, taking the material in down at the fairgrounds. Tim Gray's taking it, figured out how to take the money in with a bank account at the American West Bank. And we have Nancy Fuller is helping us with the organizing the volunteers, and we worked with the Seventh-day Adventists, BOAD people to help us organize that so we can pull all of our volunteers under that umbrella, liability insurance, some of those kind of things. We're going to meet again, this group that we have on Friday, to start putting together bylaws to run this, and so we make an organization to sort of protect all of us individually. And we're going to use the 501(c) that Habitat for Humanity has to get under their umbrella so we can start receiving money from people who needed to donate to a tax-free or charity organization. And we're going to work to get our own. But what it sounds like, we're sort of working the same place. It sounds like much more government people. We're down much more with the faith base and the volunteers. And so I think you need to work. So I got a call 10 minutes ago to come here. So that's why I'm here. So I'm sort of getting caught up with that.
Yeah, and we all are, because it started as a small group to say, what do we need to do? Because there are a lot of activities going on. So it wasn't, really truly, there was not any exclude anybody.
No.
We're just trying to figure out how does this work so we can get ahead of it, that open on it. And John just talked to John Wise about this, and that we can kind of dovetail underneath that. So how about things going on in the tribe? We've got the Spokane tribe here, and then Linda's with the Colville tribe. So you have your players here that, yeah.
No, but this meeting I'm going to take back. Get the proper people here. I think we should have our.
America. Tribal government, okay. So I don't want to miss people on the audio. So Mike or Linda or Gino, do you have anything to add?
Well, one of the folks that I invited, but they didn't make it, is Mike Noakes, who's the chair of the local Fire Chiefs Association. So even though we're talking about recovery, it's been my experience that the fire service can offer a great deal as we look at recovery. The same with, of course, emergency management.
Okay.
And Ricky Gabriel from Colville Business Council, he's the chairman of our community economic development. He wasn't able to attend. He was planning on it, so I'm not sure what happened.
So someone came in and was two people. How about you guys? Where are you from? Names and.
Yeah, hi, I'm Charles Knudsen. I'm with the governor's office and I represent the church. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here. And I was actually just on a call with General Daugherty and with Robert Ezell, who's the head of emergency. They're already starting to think about economic recovery as well at a statewide level.
Okay.
They're not yet prepared to put anything out yet because we want to make sure it's coordinated and there's not misinformation, but soon that will come. So the work that this group is doing is very helpful and constructive, and you're ahead of the game, which is great.
Thanks.
Thanks for letting me be here.
Thanks for coming. And
People's Colville School District.
yeah, right, because school, kids are starting to come back to school like next week, so there's going to be some interesting times for them to be thinking about if they've been around the fires and things like that. How about
I also invited our emergency manager, but obviously he can't be here.
He's not managing the emergency?
Well, he was going to try, but.
Okay. So,
essentially what you need is the emergency managers from all of the affected counties and/or tribes and Indians.
right. So we're not going to all be able to meet all the time. You guys, everybody's has their own not private meetings, but their own agency group meetings that are going to be doing the work that they're going to be doing. What would be a good way to communicate and make sure that the information gets out? Because we've got agency, we've got people that own land, but I'm not sure that they know all the things about how to access their resources. Would, a website or Facebook to me seems a little bit too messy for that. So, yes, John.
Well, again, going on the experience from Okanagan and already our experience here in Stevens County from dealing with the disaster itself, a single point of communication is imperative. And, for right now we have, DNR operators, we have the county EMS service. But as Wes said, really, once the fires are out, the catastrophe is only just beginning. And there's going to be continuing long-term challenges that people in our community face. And I believe that this group, this recovery group, needs, at the very least, to have its own separate specific website that can provide links to additional information. Like if you have agriculture challenges, here are the list of contacts. If it's a housing related issue, here are the people. If it's immediate necessities, then here are the locals to contact. And I believe that just like for the first few days, it was difficult getting out to the public a single point of contact for official information from within the county. But once that point of contact came, things smoothed out a little bit. And I think moving forward, we can learn from that. And I think it would be good if we had that, at least something to coordinate and focus communications. And I think our web-based platform is the best.
Okay. And because people can push it out to their Facebooks if they want. I mean, I don't mind, getting information out that way. I don't think that should be the way that we kind of house information. So is Mike in the room still? Mike, no, he stepped out. How did it work in other counties? I mean, how are things going in Ponderay for communications?
Facebook put out all sorts of good stuff like that. So, there's information out there that's incorrect. The county is actually using Excel. Excel for the sheriff's.
I don't know what that is. What is it?
It's a service that the sheriff's office in Water County they put out messages, text messages.
Oh, so it's like our HyperReach, same kind of, it's pushing out notices. Okay.
Emergency notices, and so that's been probably the most effective. But signed up, which is really good. But it's just letting them know this service is available.
Okay.
It's probably the biggest challenge. Actually handed out the county fair that we put together for everybody to explain it. That is probably the biggest, best part. They know that if they get that message true, factual.
Right. But that's for emergencies only, from what I understand. I mean, that's not going to be for, here's where you can take your horses, or, it's going to be pushed out information about road closures and evacuations and fire. Okay.
So Deborah, were you asking just about communication, outbound communication, or are you talking about communication inside the groups?
A little bit about, because we're going to have, how do we as a group communicate so that we can outbound the information?
I'm wondering if there are any best practices from Okanagan or elsewhere that allow groups like ours, individual groups, to be better in a non-messy, not necessarily public way.
Okay.
So when I asked that specific question, Nils, how they did it, and this is it. This is what Okanagan did.
In the room?
Yeah. And basically they had, obviously there were people with specialized interests, and there might be like subgroup meetings where people basically got things hammered out, ideas, but then they came together in a room just like this, and they said, here's what we need to do. They prioritized it, and they moved forward. So in there, it was eyeball to eyeball is how they did it, because we have 3 counties that we're dealing with.
And 2 or 3 tribes with the Kelly folks.
Right. I think it'd be good, it's great that we're making use of our virtual tools, and I think that needs to continue, but really these kind of meetings can be pretty productive if we do a little pre-planning.
Organizing ahead. Yeah. You were going to say something, and
I'm sorry.
Oh,
no, that's fine. So Okanagan County, one of the things they did do is a resource guide, which some of you might be familiar with, and they have it in a template. So Cascadia has stolen it already for Chelan County. So it already has most of the federal and state resources, grant programs. So really you're just tacking on the county local stuff. And there are a couple of websites that are already stood up that maybe if you wanted, you could piggyback on. The Forest Service started one in 2013 that they've been updating every year and will again. And there's talk with the Fire Adapted Community Group to get money from their national group. I don't know how that works, but and so they're trying to prioritize resources right now, and having a website for all of Washington, maybe even Idaho, that could then be broken out into county specific.
And who is that organization? The
Fire Adapted Communities.
Fire Adapted.
There might be people in this room.
Oh, that was one of the brochures that was sent to me.
Oh, there you go.
Fire Adapted Communities.
so I'm not sure if that's a FEMA group or an NGO specifically, but those are separate conversations. It'd probably be good for some people in this room to get in on those conversations too. But
So when I read that fire adapted, this is about planning and preparedness and organization, like moving forward. So it didn't in here talk about how do you get boots on the ground, resources out to people, programs that are available, resources down at the fairgrounds.
yeah, so the program itself is different, but like the local coordinators are getting money to address the response right now to the fires. Or they're trying to. They're trying to triage what do people need, what's the most important, and to see if they can do that. So.
Okay. And what was your name again?
I'm Catherine.
Catherine, okay.
And that's not my group, but I've been on.
Like, would you be able to put us in contact with them?
Yeah,
Okay, that'd be great. And put your name here, please.
So, Deborah, a little bit of your question here is, we don't know yet.
I know, that's what
We
I
don't
know
know what the needs, but what I'm getting at is we don't know what the needs are.
Right.
You know, to the extent, you know, I mean, being an agriculture producer, as well as commissioner, I'm thinking about, okay, fencing, gone. You know, we've got steep slopes, critical areas, so, you know, assessments from the Conservation District, WSU, do we need hydro seeding? Part of this job is who's at the table is what do you need?
So did
We're not
you,
identifying the needs, it's hard to find out who's here.
and what the resources are. So did you say that in Okanagan they broke down into interest groups? So would like ag be one of the interest groups, do you think?
Yeah, I think it could be.
Okay. And Patty, was forest land, so would forest land maybe, because would your issues be different than ag?
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody might have both.
Yeah, and some of it would overlap as well.
Okay.
I mean, you know, maintenance of roads and fleet fields, stuff like that. Erosion control, that would overlap with that.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you know, we have the long-term community-based things like the mental health, and dealing with the tragedy itself, and then we have public health. There are going to be some long-term consequences, both from displacement and just generally from the condition. And
so rural resources should be at the table.
They couldn't make the meeting, but they're at the table.
And as you know, they have a resource guide that's considered as a great foundation for building on.
So is that for, would you say for mental health or what was it, or just
For rural resources?
for rural resources, yeah.
No, mental health, not for rural resources. Rural resources for several other areas.
Oh, Patty's got one, resource directory,
Right.
excellent.
So that would serve as a great foundation to build upon.
So is that available online? I mean, digitally, or is it printed? Can we get it? Okay.
I have a PDF version of it. I'm sure that they probably could.
The rural resources was in my meeting earlier today, and they're helping with the housing, low-income housing, and those kind of. What at that meeting, was her primary interest in was trying to figure out the long term for those people that are displaced. And what, I mean, housing is not easy, and so we're trying to figure that out.
Okay, great. RJ?
We have a Stevens County emergency management plan. I don't know if that just addresses the initial emergency or if it has more long stuff. But
yep.
So one of the things I know that we talked about after the Carlton complex was the builders and realtors and the home builders association. They lost a huge amount of homes. We've been pretty fortunate we only lost a handful, and I don't mean to be derogatory by saying it that way. But, you know, when they've lost thousands of homes over there and we lose 20, proportional. You know, to the extent that 20 people have to get homes, having the home builders would be great.
Okay. So add them as a partner.
The other thing is somebody from the insurance agency, because right now you can't buy homeowners insurance policy anywhere in all of Northeast Washington. And we're being told because of the fires, our insurance is going to go up. So having them here in the room talking about what do we have to do to get those policies back down price-wise,
Another good reason to have them in the room is the flood insurance. So there's some specific criteria for flood insurance after fires, and in Okanagan County, the agents are not familiar with that. So there was a extra time educating local insurance agents like this. Hopefully they're up to speed.
So we had, we were starting to break down, I'm adding those on as people to look into the group. We're starting to break down kind of some subgroups that might meet and talk specifically about how to find the people that need the help, how to get the information to them, how to find the information and the research. So I had ag, forestry, mental health, but I don't know if I got that kind of, is mental health kind of a family personal health kind of, where would you put that in the?
I wouldn't include it as personal health because I think there's going to be healthcare issues separate just with the air quality conditions.
So, but would mental health be part of the family youth unit?
Sure.
And schools would be kind of involved in that? Yep. Any other groups that want? Yeah, yes. No.
I don't know if water should be called out separately. We're already worried about water issues before the fire. There was a lot of hand on wells around. Water quality is going to be an issue.
Yes, so Dave was here, but he left, right? Okay, because his group is looking at the septic systems and how to reaffirm them. I don't know what to do with those, but do something to them. So that home issues, rebuilding and whether we need to get septic systems and everything in that. Any other subgroups that we can?
Erosion, flooding.
So is that going to the ag and forestry, or is that all? It could go into home too.
Sure. What about general industrial needs? You know, with the forest being closed down, the major employers are going to be facing some hurdles. We talked about in the earlier meeting about some special resources being available for redeployment of those who were laid off as a result of the disaster. So it might be good to have
Business, industrial / okay. Economic development. That would be there.
I think probably just business and industry.
And the subgroup, okay.
And the fact that a lot of businesses right now have employees are not showing up to work because they're at home. We've been evacuated. It's putting stress on a lot of small businesses that have employees, doing or not.
Today we kind of talked about the septic system issue with homes. Is there other home?
Yeah, so actually I have a handout. We should send it around. I got called off on it. So let me pass this around. And this is some things I've gleaned from Schlant Douglas from last year. So from a public health aspect, there's some things that initially right up front. They've got homeowners who have lost homes. We haven't had many of those, not like they have over in Okanagan, but it becomes an issue. Debris and ash are the initial pieces that we're looking at. Other things that Matt and I have talked about is if someone has lost a home, how to expedite the permitting process to get them back in their home. If they have a permitted septic system, what we're going to do is if they're building on the same footprint, and then one piece of paper out the door they go, no cost, no expedite, get it out the door. Those are going to change. That will change the nature of their permit. So what I got coming around, some things we talked about debris and ash handling. Wells may be affected. So you've got homes with lost some garages and some outbuildings where chemicals have been stored. So we've addressed that in here. Propane tanks, heating oil, animal burial. And then that may be a big issue as we go into Perry County. It certainly was last year with Okanagan. They had crews out with ag, the brand inspector. You were yeah, you were with that's such a happy job. So we've already talked about that. Food safety after the fire, and food safety as things may have been compromised because of temperatures. They've lost refrigerators, lost freezers. So if we run into places where people have lost power for a significant amount of time, like we did 2 years ago with Perry County. We need to open up the landfills for free, well, food disposal. So people aren't just dumping food into ditches or whatever. So food goes to the landfill and is dealt with appropriately rather than just wherever. And that tends to happen around here. Masks, I've already talked about. We're already on masks. So we put out about 5,000 so far. And I'm figuring by the time we're done, we'll probably put out another 5,000 to 10,000 masks.
In the Tri-County area.
In the Tri-County area. Respiratory health, we've got people in the hospitals who are ticking, as we get people who come through with respiratory problems that they can attribute to the fire. We're going to track those and use that as a statistical basis to make decisions down the line. Let's see what respiratory health, private wells. So we've got wells that have been affected. And it's more so with the PVC pieces that connect the wells melting and those sorts of things, and then take it back into the wells, how to disinfect wells, shock the system, get the wells, and more importantly, the Group A and Group B water systems back up online. So there are some areas that in the blowdown, and 2 years ago in Perry County, we got with the water system operators and got them online first, got them power, so other people come to those locations, get water, and then go back out. So we've already made contact with some of those folks. Wes and Matt have talked about it, so they've got, some of those pieces are already in place to give people access to clean drinking water. And then we talk about water disinfection. And then this document I sent around, I made it kind of generic in some ways, because it is 3 counties. And I put an appendix behind to start. If we address water quality, there's water quality people back here.
Okay.
So all we have to update is really the appendix, not the base document.
Not the base document. Okay.
So we can add things as we go along, as we identify other health issues.
It seems like we're actually okay about what we have to offer. Are we reaching out to everybody that needs it? I mean, how are we getting out to the people, like the people that need the water? Do you know who those folks are? Do you know how to find them, or?
We do, we don't.
Okay.
And it goes back to anytime you have a management like this, is who else needs to know? That should be the biggest thing that we all do, is who else needs to know? So who else do I need to push that information to?
Okay.
So I'm going to point back to one of our fire chiefs here, because part of the job of the fire chiefs is to, and our assessor's office to identify those structures that have been lost. Now, that doesn't necessarily harm to a well, it could. But you identify those structures and then the fire, and we've got the assessors, and we've got our emergency managers compiling those lists countywide so we can identify who's been impacted.
And right now, the assessor has a partial list for the Carbon Road fire. They shared it with the Red Cross so we can start doing our client work with it. And we're going to share it with the people down at the distribution center so they know some of the people that are majorly affected. But the problem we have down there is that we have a lot of people that were evacuated, but they haven't lost their homes yet, right? But they're out of the home. And so we're trying to get say, come on in, the physical stuff we're handing out to anybody, we're not looking at that. But the monetary things right now, the beginning group has said, we're going to try to get to the people who have lost their home. And so the money that this group is gathering at first is earmarked after. And once we know about how much money we have and what our needs are, and we really get down to, because like the assessor said, they think that quite a few of the homes were unoccupied and have been for a long time. So it's hard to know when we look at this address, was someone there or was someone not there? Did you have a pile of ash?
Well, and some of that needs to come from the tribes.
Yeah, and we need
Spokane tribe, obviously, you're probably doing your own assessment on the reservation, correct?
The assessor only could get in the places that the Vic Anderson down there, the fire chief, let them in. There's two roads that is too hot for letting them in, so they can't do the assessment yet. And we don't know how many we have up north.
So you're identifying the immediate need, which is great. Then we have access to get those landowners to like the conservation district so that they find out what they need to do for, I mean, are we bridging that? Or can we? I don't know.
Can we is
Yeah.
the unknown.
Okay.
And that's something that the commissioners are going to have. I got the list to share with the Red Cross so they can go out and be able to, that whatever we have there cannot be distributed open.
Right.
I have also given it to this group down here, because that's also was given okay. I don't know, you need to answer who that list can be given to.
Our emergency manager has that information, and it is not public.
Right, it's not public information, so
but that doesn't mean we can't, as a county, direct those folks to where the resources of some group like this has compiled and put together.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
it's
I'm not asking
so
for their
much-
names.
Yeah, it's
but
not
how do
so
we get
much
there?
us going out to contact them as much as this county or the tribe has the ability to point people in the right direction.
Okay, because some of that stuff is pretty timely, you know, getting inventories of your property. I don't know anything about trees, but I hear if you don't cut them down in time, they get diseased. I mean, this is stuff that, you know, we want to handle right away. It's not something 3 to 6 months down the road, right? So getting the information quickly to them is important.
So, I mean, you brought up trees, just so everybody can get a chance to hear this. I know Sheldon and I have both been, and we're not the only ones with this. We've been talking to DNR, we've talked to the governor's office, we've been trying to get a hold of DNR back in Olympia and haven't got a reply yet. We are frantically trying to get our timber guys back out in burn areas to harvest as many trees as possible while it's still viable. Unfortunately, we're in a complete closure. We're trying to get them to make an exception to bring us down to one level so they can do the fire watch, keep everybody safe. We haven't quite cracked that nut yet, but we're working on it. So that, you know, private owners, that timbers, if they can't cut it now, they've lost all the value. The mills will lose the value. They lose the tax revenue. I mean, there's just a multiplier of losses on not being able to harvest trees. And to flip that over on the environmental side, there's a lot of benefits to having those folks out there doing that work in the forest, because they're laying trees down strategically in places to keep water from flowing into streams. It's not like they harvest every tree. Some of them they actually place strategically to protect the streams, to direct runoff. There's a lot of that work that's done as they harvest. So we're working on that, but
and there you go. I'll put my fire hat on, and that is one of the problems we have, even at the Marble Valley Fire, which was one of the early fires, the smaller ones. They're still out there trying to get all the stumps out. We had a guy get hurt yesterday walking into a stump, so it's not a safe place quite yet. So I understand what you're working for. But
so let me explain one thing so everybody gets to hear this. What I'm being told is we're not talking about putting loggers on the ground. We're talking about putting equipment in. So the trouble is when you have a fire like this, you get somebody that's walking around and a stump's burned out. You step on top of that, all that structure underneath there could have burned, and you fall in a nice, very, very hot hole. That's not what we're looking to have happen. However, when they bring the harvester's equipment in, you don't have folks on the ground. They're in the equipment. And if it does go in a hole like that, the equipment is made to be able to bridge that hole. So we're wanting to do it safe.
yes, I understand that, but at the same time, you don't want to get people hurt.
Yeah.
So, Deborah, just to go back, I was
Sure.
getting information out. I mean, that's I'm from the library district, and that's one of our goals, and it has been. We are one of the few countywide agencies present to get the information. North Port, at least by ourselves. We've been you know, as many of you are all getting phone calls, we're getting those. And what we're seeing are a lot of people who don't have, in some cases, telephones. And in many cases, people who don't have internet. They're not seeing Tri-County Fire Facebook page. They don't have to do hyper-reach. They don't, you know, to do that, you have to have an internet to go on. You don't have to, that's the way to do it. And so we've been helping with all of those pieces. All of any kind of document, we have the one you have, rural resources. We can be that clearinghouse. If that's a role that the library can take on, and I know that North Central Regional and Perry County and Connery and do the same. So that's, as we go through, taking off the list of what needs to happen, that's a big role for us. We've also been a donation drop site for all the fires. So when there were some small fires up in Northport, the information in the library, trying to call them, bring it back. So we're our main, you know, we're a place. We're a place that's present in those communities that can just be whatever is needed by any of you. We probably won't go put out fires.
No.
We might.
We'll have our own skills. We all have our own skills.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
when you say information, oh yes, Linda, please jump in.
Hey, for who, okay, on the part on who should participate, we probably should have somebody there to talk about roads rehabilitation, because a lot of the heavy equipment and fighting fire out on the roads that have been damaged through the fire prevention, and then also wildlife management after the fires, because with all that wildlands burned up, the wildlife might be coming more and more into populated areas. So we might need a plan in place for that to manage.
Great. I'm getting these on the flip charts and you will get the notes. I just couldn't figure out how to do everything technology. I only got halfway there. Okay, so we've got kind of pieces of this, but again, here's one thing that I don't want to do. I don't want to have one website that everything has to dump into. All of your organizations have to dump into one. I mean, I just want it so that people can start at a place and get out. Or if they get to your site first, they can get back to ours if they need something. I mean, some kind of mechanism, you know, so that we have a communications clearinghouse. Would that be the libraries or some other place to have information so people can go, oh yeah, I've got animals. I need to go to this site, and then I've got places to go.
We can definitely be that. We have lots of website developers on our staff. We do, I mean, what we're trained to do is collect and organize, you know, do that kind of information. So the link might be to the county website. It might be to rural resources. We don't duplicate everything, but we could be that role.
Okay.
If that's
The county website has a lot of just what you asked for.
Yeah,
the Red Cross, we've been making our own list and shipping everything to the EOC, the countywide.
And
so it's on their website, and they've done a really nice job to get in there. And so to answer your question, that's a number one website to go to, is the one that they developed with the emergency management. Anything we got, we pushed to them that was in our account.
Okay. Yes, John.
So if I could basically just kind of poll the room, there are a lot of great resources that are both represented in this room and outside of this room. But one of the purposes for bringing a group together is to have a single group, a single voice that can bring all of those together. And so one of the questions that I think that we need to answer, that we need to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down, is are we willing to work together as a single group that can coordinate all of these different things, at both upward when we're talking to the higher agencies seeking greater support, and then downward as we're working back into the public, delivering, making sure that people have access to that. Do we have agreement that we can work together, that we should work together, rather than just working as individual groups doing our own thing?
Who wants to start that? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
So what I would add to that is that we're talking about 3 counties at least. So using Stevens County as the website is not a good idea.
Right.
Because just in terms of mental health, how you access mental health or local crisis services is different in Ponderay than it is in Colorado Republic. So having a single point of entry that covers multiple counties is better than trying to isolate within one county.
That's what this group.
Also, when you're mentioning about the multiple agencies in county, when you're talking about counties, also keep in mind you've got 2 tribal entities involved in this too. Spokane Tribe, Colville Tribe, and then Pend Oreille is also on here too, Kalispell.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They weren't able to come to the meeting.
Coordinate.
Yep. No, good point, Linda. Thank you.
But I would argue that I think that the information, the library is where people go for information. I think it's a great idea that the library system develop something like that with, you know, then people don't have to have computers. They don't have to have that information. They can come to the library like they would. And we have staff that can maintain, develop, and make money. If the other 2 county library systems
We could make one site, coordinate with our colleagues in those counties that's called something like Northeast Emergency, whatever. And so then it would have doors, I mean, presumably it wouldn't be as much work as right now because it's not ongoing all the time. So you could have all that stuff. If the emergency is, you know, the wildfire, then that information gets added. If the emergency is flooding, then that information gets added. And it can be a point site that's just, you know, but I agree that there should be one regional.
When this group moves forward, decides to go forward, that's what this group's website could do. If you have an emergency, you want to know fire updates, you can point up in County, you point to that site. You can point to Pend Oreille, you can point to Fair.
On that side,
it's a lot of
pointing,
as long as you can do that.
and it's all up. Yeah,
I'm worried about this. I don't care about
well, a lot of what we did on our county website for this fire is we put a link. I mean, now we have power outages on there, and it's not just fire related. All we did was put a link to a Vista. We got permission to use a Vista's power outage site. You click on that, you know exactly who's out in the county and where that outage
but
is.
it's all only county west.
Right
now. I mean,
but it has the whole area because the Vista covers that. We can put inland in there too, because the southern part of the county has inland. But what I'm getting at is we're not updating that. Vista is keeping their own site updated pretty much real time.
We would just be a link.
We just a link.
We would just be storing links, organizing links.
That's
So
the same thing what you're doing with the fires.
Yeah,
Because you're just going to DNR and Forest Service and putting out what they have. For
And
the
there's
most part.
thousands of people who can't access the internet, and then they come in and say, I need to find out X. I was told to look on the website. I don't even know what.
But you as librarians would do then.
And then we
really
say,
help.
here you go.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the more important.
Question.
Oh, wait, we have a question from, sorry, can we do this well?
Yeah. Hi, this is, sorry to jump in, but it's kind of awkward to find the right spot. This is Mike Bullard from Inland Northwest VOAD. As I remember, the Carlton Complex long-term recovery has a big wheel with 3 separate spokes and with some smaller organizations within the large organization to deal with the more local things. I'm wondering about the group that was mentioned a few minutes ago that met this morning as the meeting had planned to meet tomorrow. And I'm wondering, within one large body, would that group be working at odds or on a smaller section as a part of it? What kind of relationships do you see as possible for the larger organization and then for groups such as that one there that had met this morning?
That's a good time.
Okay.
Mike, by the way, that meeting is Friday, not tomorrow.
That's right. Right.
If you want to drive up there. I think we can work with the group as, I see us a layer down from you guys. I think you're the government, most of you are government type people, and we're really been the citizen group that are putting together. I don't know exactly where it is, that's why I'm here, to figure out, for Nancy and I to figure out where we fit into the system, but we're up and going, and that's, we needed to get up.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely.
So I'm just as a government guy here.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that this group is not a government group.
Yeah.
That this group is a non-government group, and if the government service that can be supplied, whether that be a county or the state or whatever, this group can help facilitate pointing in that direction.
Sure.
Yeah.
But if you go around the room,
yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we started somewhere, and this is where we go. This is where we got.
And it's not bad.
Yeah.
I'm not putting a government as being bad.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
They are sometimes.
Yeah. Well, let's not get into that debate. Okay, Dean.
Well, to the question whether we need this or not, as being a conservation district, we want to be kind of spirit or a major part in the recovery of ag, forestry, and natural resources and wildlife. But I'm going to need help from an organization like this, because what I see, there's kind of 3 phases, and the conservation district probably only handle the middle. First phase, website outreach, getting people, we don't have the staff or the time to go get the parcel land, go door to door and try to inventory the property. We need everybody else who is working with landowners, if they fit into what we do, that they will call us. And then we have access to, professional soil scientists, timber, through other agencies and stuff. So that's where our focus is. We just have to have the people know that they can come to us. And then once we get the inventory, the losses, the needs, then we got to put in some applications to get money. And then I'm going to need help from higher up people that can deal with the bureaucracy with FEMA, NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service. They have a program for emergency watershed funds, but it's a lot of hoops to jump through, and they still haven't got it figured out from last year's fires. You got to exhaust all local resources. You got to find 25% match. You got to find that. So, finding 25% match individually for each landowner is tough, but have a big picture, and we can get match from libraries and other help. So I hope this or there's some kind of form of thing that we can all work together.
So is it thumbs up?
Or something very similar.
Yeah.
We might fragment off and be a natural resource ag committee, and then hopefully we got 10 people's agencies working with Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife, but then we still need a representative come here to help with the bigger picture, because it's all intermixed. We live in a rural area.
Yeah.
You got your house, you got your pets, you got your cows, you love wildlife, you hate wildlife because they eat your garden. There's all that interaction, and we can't be going, the landowner be hit by 3 different agencies.
Yeah, and just having started this meeting, I'm surprised how many documents I get from people on, you got to share this and you got to have that, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, I don't even know where to start. And I don't even have.
In for our resource guide that we started with Conservation District and WSU.
Yeah,
it's right at the corner by John.
Oh, over here. Yeah, so Dean and WSU put together what to do immediately after a fire. That's the room. Which is, it's I'd like to see this other resource guide that's happening that includes all the other state agencies and too.
That was based, this started.
Started from that. Dean's already taken the lead. That's great. So, another thing about, not Okanagan, Okanagan, is they do have a 501c3. I'm glad to hear that you guys solved the problem with the donations, because Tim yesterday said he had this money, but it was, didn't have a 501c3. But you guys in Stevens County have solved that.
We seem to have solved it, and we're going to work on getting our own one for long term.
Okay.
That's what Tim's vision was when I left with him at noon today.
Okay.
And is that Stevens County only?
What we have done is we're taking Stevens County and Perry County, this side of the Kettle Red.
Okay.
So it's the natural group that comes to Colville, or Kettle Colville, this area. But we haven't included Republic because they had a group that was put together from the windstorm. We don't want to step on toes, and but they're not up and running quite yet. Is the last thing I heard.
So to clarify the offer that was made this morning is in Okanagan County, they have the Okanagan County Recovery Group, Fire Recovery Group, but then also they have, I think it's the Central Washington Foundation, Recovery Foundation. They have the 501c3 that was specifically set up to deal with the cash donations made for the Carlton Complex fire. Well, that same foundation is now once again active, dealing with those donations. They're all set up. They're accustomed to working with FEMA. They're accustomed to working with this exact circumstance that we're talking about. And the offer was made by them. They've already got the organization set up. They're more than willing to simply allow our donors to send to them, and they would segregate any funds that are earmarked for the Tri-County area to be used for the Tri-County area. But we wouldn't have to duplicate the work that's already been done, and it would be simpler for donors and et cetera. So that doesn't mean we have to take that offer.
Right.
Or if Stevens County has it organized, that's great, but if Ponderay doesn't, we can do a Ponderay. I mean, 501c3 is, costs $800 to do and about a year to set up. So, if you can take advantage of somebody that has the same mission and is going to work with you, and it's a great way to mitigate the problem immediately. And it's long-term, if you want to set one up, that's great.
And our advantage also is that with Habitat Humanity, Lisa, that's a local person here, and she'll be able to run the fund. So we coordinated without going all the way to Okanagan.
Yep.
But I didn't know that existed until now.
Which is why we're having a meeting.
Yeah.
Because everyone has a piece of this puzzle.
Really do.
Everybody has a piece of this puzzle.
And what was their official name? Was Okanagan?
Do we still have it, Debbie?
I might.
Okay.
I'd have to look it up.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to get that information. And then they also offered, they have, not bylaws, but a structure that they would let, if we ask for it, we could understand what their, piggyback on the effort that they've already made to establish this community group, and we don't have to fight through all the discussions about how we should set up. And if we want to, we can get it and decide if that's something.
Mike Fowler, that's on your phone, is going to send us bylaws that they sent to Okanagan that they used to set it up.
Perfect.
So we're getting that, and part of our meeting Friday is to start tweaking that to make it real for what we're doing.
Excellent.
So for moving forward, if we're going to talk about long-term recovery, there is the FEMA conversation, but there are other conversations that need to happen. And in order to not just deal with the immediate need, but to deal with the long-term consequences of the fire, there is an entire series of both questions and answers that need to be delivered in a concerted fashion in order to have an affirmative response.
Right.
The advantage that we have is Okanagan County has already done that. And they said that they can make available to us that entire template, not just the organization, but the entire process. All we have to do is come together as a group and request it. And so that goes back again to my original comment. Can we agree to work together as a group and essentially share all of that information, but have a central clearinghouse where everybody can take advantage in all three counties, not just Colville, Stevens County, Perry County, Ponderay,
all three tribes.
And all three tribes, so that we don't have to duplicate efforts. Let's face it, we all go to these meetings, so we know that there's only a few people that actually go to the meeting. And so if we don't have to duplicate the effort, if we can take advantage of that sharing, is that something that we're willing to do moving forward?
I think, John, everybody in the room said yes.
Okay.
Oh, we did. We did.
I'm not sure where we're.
Is anybody thinking, well, I really want to leave because I'm starting to want to throw up? No, everyone.
Does that nonprofit, Okanagan have staff, or who does they do? And how do they fund that?
As far as the staff position?
Yeah.
I don't know the details of the inner workings, but that's a part of if we request information from them, we'll get all of that information.
One of the things that Mike told us is that with the Riverside disaster last year, with the windstorm that wiped out the trailer court, that they were able to get the Methodist group, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the name, that they came in and helped pay for a caseworker to work on all the cases that there. And his suggestion is for us to do the same thing. And so between now and Friday, we have a couple of people checking some of the churches groups to see if they will help fund that. And then one of our problems is, we've all listened to what the country Chevrolet said, every penny is going to go to the victim. Well, that means we can't pay somebody out of there to do the casework, but we've got to get somebody to do that. I mean, it's a real job. You can't expect volunteers to do that for as long as it's going to take to do that. So our group is trying to find that. And I think we'll dovetail with you guys real well. We're all just starting to form things. We're not trying to keep out of doing things, and at the same time, we've got to have this up and going so we can take care of those funds that are walking in the door, and we can take care of that.
Rob, did you have a comment?
John, is there any way you can get the organizational structure of how they're running that over there? Because we do have a nonprofit corporation that does entail with all the governmental entities.
And all the tribes.
3 counties,
being the board member is already set up.
Right.
That is a nonprofit corporation, and this the money that flows through it is not governmental until we move it. You know, if we move it to county, but we do have the corporation, and I do believe, depending on what he says, that this is guidelines.
Fantastic.
We'd have to figure out, you know, we'd have to figure out ways that staff could work with it, manage it, do whatever, but it's an option. And I'm not saying it's a all end all, but it's in place and it's up and running and it doesn't have a lot of money in it. So
we're gonna find the money.
Yeah, perfect.
All that I have to do is go away from this meeting tonight, send a single email to John Weiss and say, we want the information, we're moving forward, and I can have it to you before the end of the week.
You know, and then we can sit down and look at it. If you want to come in, I'll look at it and make sure that it meets the requirements.
So it's great about that. I mean, I love their offer from Okanagan, but you know, donors are not going to want to write a check to Okanagan.
Sure. Right.
Relief. I mean, even though we know it would be separate, it's just a perception.
Yep.
Right. It's a perception thing. So if it is local, it's going to be easier to calm the fears of.
The one caveat I got to add is the board, the way that we have set it up, the board is specifically made up of governmental representatives from every jurisdiction.
But every jurisdiction.
Every tribes,
everybody that's in the
communities, everybody has the people going on.
Yeah.
So this thing is called the Central Washington Fire Recovery. It's Central Washington Fire Recovery document.
That's the Forest Service website.
Huh. We have some homework. Okay, so everybody's in so far, right? Okay. We don't have a formal organization yet because we got to do some homework on that and whether it fits the mission of TED. TED Corporation. Yes, Gloria.
So do we get our terminology straight? That's called fiscal sponsorship.
Okay.
And I've done that quite a bit with my nonprofit to bring in pledging nonprofits or organizations that just don't have the bandwidth or want to be a nonprofit. And usually there's a small percentage taken off the top as a stipend to pay for the extra accounting work. The fiscal sponsor is responsible for keeping track of all funds. And the funds come in to that fiscal sponsor and then they're distributed back out. And the organization that's requesting that fiscal sponsorship needs to provide either monthly or quarterly statements about how that money was obtained and how it's going to be spent or how it was spent. And so it's pretty straightforward. It's just one more column in your QuickBooks, essentially, one more class. But it does take somebody a little extra time to do that. And the fiscal sponsoring organization does bear a certain responsibility for making sure that those funds are reported accurately, and then the underlying organization is responsible for spending them appropriately and all that, and feeding the information back up. So it's a fiduciary relationship, but it's called fiscal sponsorship, and it happens all the time. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay. So what I like about that, being kind of going in that direction if it actually works, is all of this that we've talked about today leads towards long-term economic development for this region. So we've talked about the immediate response to the situation. We've talked about the immediate assisting of families and homes, but we got to have economic stability in our community, and several of our sectors are having problems. Timberland, ag land, agriculture, businesses, and tourism. I mean, those are some things that are being affected by these fires. So having the fact that we're also kind of connected to economic development, to me, makes sense, because that's what we want to do, is make sure that people have jobs, have safe families, and good health.
And Catherine was right. That was the Forest Service page. The right one is it's Community Foundation North Central Washington. So it's efncw.org. Is there the nonprofit?
Okay.
And they're
CFNCW.
That's the foundation, and the central organization through which they do their communications is CarltonComplexRecovery.com.
That first one was where they had all their donations. Like, that might be
Okay. Yes.
So just to be clear, for the Department of Agriculture, obviously there's many different parts of it. You've got pesticides, you've got seeds, you've got so forth. So kind of here on a fact gathering information deal. I can tell you for the livestock ID program, which I represent, we're going to be here. Whatever, in the emergency, that's obviously going to come through your incident command and so forth, and we will accommodate that. I'm confident that when I bring this back to the director, that he will continue to have someone at the table. But that may also change in your immediate emergency, your short term, your medium, and your long term. So although I will give a thumbs up that the Department of Agriculture wants to be engaged when you start talking nonprofits and so forth. We're a little skittish. So we want to be at the table, obviously, since we're here, but that may be many different faces as this moves on.
Exactly. And it's, the ag sector, who do they contact about this short-term, medium, and long-term information and approach?
And we'll totally engage in getting that information, being with all of those. So where do we go? There's so many different things that are going to happen out of this that we fall under that umbrella. One thing I would suggest on who needs to participate, your counties, cattlemen's associations, obviously, and then your two biggest state associations of cattle producers of Washington, the Washington Cattlemen's Association, both of which should have people at this table that we find be members. Another suggestion, this is just a suggestion, I'm sure you'll do it as you move on. You mentioned the Okanagan group that they put together. I get one or two or three of that group a face-to-face with them as well. For one or two meetings to not only just give you a template on how they did it, but the struggles that they went through as they were doing it.
That's great. No, we're not leaving yet. No, I got some assignments. I have some assignments.
Can we get a copy of that planning?
Yes. No, so this is what I was going to agree to, is that I'm going to take everybody's emails that are here, those that couldn't make it that still want to be interested, and distribute it. So we'll have a distribution list that people can, and a copy of it so you can have it. This is the part where I want a couple, not just a thumbs up, but kind of I want to engage at the next level of organization. So I would like somebody from the ag sector and forest sector to say, I'm willing to kind of think about who are the ag groups that need to be communicated with, who are the forestry people, who are the health people, so that so we don't miss out on people. And I'll say that WSU Extension went in and did some recovery with the 530 slide, and they went in and they said there's a whole bunch of people there when the slide happened, like lots of friends when the slide happened. As soon as the slide incident was over, a lot of them left, and then there's work that has to be done, and they really missed that they didn't have to pay attention to the family kid crisis opportunities as much as they should have. And so they kind of got a little bit behind the eight ball, Okanagan did. So I want to make sure we don't miss out on those things. We can see the trees burning. We know the land is, but what are the other social issues that we also need to buoy around and help people solve? So I say, yes, Claire.
I've been wondering how, in monitoring the various websites throughout the crises, the Stevens County and Tri-County Volunteer Facebook page, which had to be created because there was such an overwhelming desire from people to help and volunteer. Is there a group or organization, or would that be us, that can help coordinate people who want to volunteer? People who don't have an association or an organization or a job related to the work that we're talking about necessarily, but they just want to volunteer. And I feel this pent up need, and I'm afraid that, like the situation you just described, once the smoke clears, kids are back to school, all get geared up, going on back, getting our lives back on track, that a lot of that desire to volunteer will have dissipated. And if we can capture it now, while it's fresh, while people are truly sincere and truly ready to do it, it would be wonderful, because we could probably lose 75% of them just to attrition.
Anybody doing that?
Right now, when DNR put out the call for help, they got overwhelmed. And so Julie Stuck from DNR has created a volunteer list. she has shared it with our group so that we can get volunteers to help with the distribution side. But one of the problems, just like you said, she has this big long list and you only need 15 people. Now all these people are not happy because they didn't get called first. So I know Wendy Rogers is the person in our group that's in charge of that, and she's trying to work out a schedule to get everybody going with it. And so that's how we tapped into it. That Julie Stark has a long list. If there's other needs for volunteers, and they were calling the fire district to have people come and watch our fire trucks, those kind of things. If there's need, there is that resource.
I'm just
That
wondering.
system's not set up yet, at least in this county, and that's what commissioners.
Like a volunteer.
Yeah, you know, what's coming in has been the emergency management. Those folks are now helping by create the system that will be based when they leave. Some of them have already left, some of the systems have already taken. County staff that are some of those. But what happens is when things out like that, DNR was really looking for firefighters. Those are out. You know, they got 4,000 people who wanted help.
Yeah.
And so then that's what happened. So, you know, before putting out the word of let's get help, right, you have to have the system in place. So that's what we're trying to do. Some of that system in place. We've got dozens of people showing up here. No organization about how and what and who and where.
You saw the same thing with donations of items, right? You get everybody wants to.
Donations are everywhere. They're going every which direction, and some, you know, it's so we're trying to coordinate. So how can we have a we want to?
Okay, and that's that's what I'm so concerned about is that also that you have a dump list of all these volunteers, but there's not a way to direct them to where they want to go or what they want to do or the skills that they have. Yeah, so we if everyone here, if you had a place or an opportunity for volunteers to help, if we had a volunteer coordination system set up, then we could say, what kind of help would you like to offer? Well, I just want to, bake cookies or something, and somebody else is there. I want to do fire rehab. If we could then say, okay, we know that such and such an agency or organization is looking for those volunteers, so we can connect that sector with the group that can actually put them to work effectively and efficiently.
That's what I'm working on.
For this county, okay. So can we learn lessons from you for other counties? Can we take lessons learned from you on other?
Yeah, because I'm learning as I
Yeah, I know. You're making, as they say, building the boat.
Started when?
Get out in the middle of the lake and build a boat. Frank.
It seems like we're getting off on a lot of different discussions where I think what we first need to do is build the foundation for what we're going to do.
Thank you.
I think we need to organize our group. Like you said, for volunteers, there's someone who wants to volunteer to be the volunteer coordinator and stuff like that. Find out what are our goals and objectives and where we're going with this group so that we can kind of organize our discussions a little bit.
Yes, I agree. Because again, some of the stuff has to be handled at a micro level as opposed to a group level.
And there's experts in the room who are better at items like ag.
That was kind of that sector thing I was looking for, so that we could say who's going to be in charge of the ag, at least not in charge, but the point person to organize and mobilize and coordinate. And who's going to do the forestry? I mean, is it too early to get everybody there? Do we need to start looking at the structure and then?
I think we need to identify the sectors.
Okay.
We try to figure out who's going to run them.
Okay.
So we talked about earlier, for instance, the immediate relief efforts now, the public health issues, the mental health issues. If we put together one sector that we essentially called community services that addressed all those service needs, would you guys feel comfortable working together to kind of come together and say, here's what we need, here are the needs that we observe, and here are the things that we can provide? Is that something that you would feel comfortable working together to produce, to bring back to this group?
I'm not opposed to it, but I want to say this. In talking with my counterpart in Okanagan, there's not a whole lot of the type of disaster response trauma that would have been experienced at the landslide. Okay. To see, so first of all, most people are not going to have a psychiatric problem with this. There'll be stress, there'll be anxiety, but it will mitigate really quickly, and the vast majority of people won't need any level of professional service. The people, and a lot of that's because there's not catastrophic loss of life. So in order to get to a level of a diagnosis that would really require psychiatric intervention, mental health intervention, we would be looking at a different level of trauma than what's happening here. So for the kid, going back to schools, Pete, you know, I think as soon as we can start normalizing life, that's going to make a big difference. And as long as it's safe to do so, getting people back to normal, the vast majority of people aren't going to need much of anything. What they're going to need is taking care of the immediate needs. The how do I have a place to live? Do I have food to put on the table? Not many people are going to need professional psychiatric or mental health care. There will be some, but that is going to be a tiny portion compared to the general population that I think that this group is really interested in. Okay. So
that's actually good news.
So I would prioritize that group first. I think that the group that is going to be much more important is for those who have been displaced. How are they going to get their basic human needs met first? And in talking with OBHC, Okanagan Behavioral Health Center, they said that after Carleton Complex, there was very, very little request for mental health services. Much later on down the road, the people who really had problems, then they started coming in. But for the vast majority of the population, that's not what the need's going to be.
Okay. You don't have to be that specific either. I mean, there's a lot of things that can fall under health, like water quality, air quality, all that stuff. So it can be a more broader group, a broader area than just narrowing it down to physical.
So public health would be one? Is that a sector? Okay. We have community services. So the services are still important. The immediate answer to food, water, shelter. I mean, a triage place. And so what we need to get you is information on where to send them when you know what their issues are. Yes. That kind of thing. So because you're not going to, you don't want to, we don't want your list, but we want you to send people to us.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's actually the county's list that we've been using. And so it depends on how they want to distribute. I mean, it becomes, like I said, I told the assessor how I'm using it. That's all I'm going to use it for. If I'm going to go back and use it other ways, then I got to go back to the source and ask them, yeah, can I use it that way? But I think we can generally tell you where to go, and you tell, soil conservation, this particular area was hit pretty real hard, whether, and you don't, I mean, for what he's doing, you don't care whether it's a house, you want land. And, taking the big maps and taking a look at what will help them do that better.
So is ag and natural resources together, or do you want to split that up into a smaller group?
I think it should be one group.
One group, okay.
Environmental health, ag, natural resources, and forestry is part of that. And then that group might subdivide down from there, but there's so much overlap.
Yeah. Okay.
Deborah, the other thing that occurs to me is, of course, we're dealing with the immediate crisis, which is fire, but this could be anything. I mean, this could be another Mount St. Helens. And so, we need to be looking at it not just, I mean, in terms of the crisis thing being specific to fire, but we want to make sure that we include all those other eventualities because it could be some other kind of crisis.
Right. When we get into the planning part, how do we, if a train wreck happens in the how do we do that kind of stuff? Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, like mudslides is the biggest thing after fire, but you're not safe for 5 to 10 years afterwards until your vegetation is back up. Right. We can have a mudslide 8 years from now triggered from.
Right.
I was going to say, I would like to see public safety be mentioned with the ag and natural resources because the whole erosion threat and like the mudslide, flash floods, I'm sure a lot of you saw how Carlton got hit. And so education and outreach and awareness right now, which is why I'm going to the fire meetings, because they got hit before the fire was even out and people lost their homes from the flooding, but totally were untouched by fire. So
education, outreach, and awareness.
Okay, good. That's a good one.
And dealing with the sector, you you mentioned public safety, but I think if we talk about transportation and public safety, those are two things right now that are going to go hand in hand moving forward. Those are both essentially government services, but specialized government services.
Okay. Am I missing anything?
When you talk about public safety and transportation, are you including infrastructure in that? Because I know that was one of the things we did very early on with fires, was trying to identify critical infrastructure, BPA lines, railroad. You know, we had to contact the railroad and say, you know, what are you transporting through here that you're a few feet from the fire in some circumstances, and we don't need pulling oil cars, they're going to explode.
Well, I can tell you on Okanagan, it all kind of fell into the environmental and natural resources, because when you're evaluating, you know, what the hill slopes are, what the needs are, you're also evaluating the soil type and the, you know, flood risk, the erosion risk, what's downstream, what could be impacted, the transportation, road corridors, wells even. So that kind of all got lumped together because the people assessing for the A were generally working. Maybe that's not how you guys want to do it, but that's kind of how it ended up in Okanagan.
Yeah.
We're still in, we all worked together because we were all kind of looking for the same.
Yeah, we're still in that messy stage of we're not sure what we're doing yet, so we're trying to get enough on it.
So in Ponderay and Ferry, you've got utilities that are dealing with a lot of their communications and power infrastructure. Stevens is mostly water, but we're coming up on communication. And so I kind of think that transportation, I think that's the public safety transportation, that's the right place to put that, all of that conversation and all of that.
So one of the things that came out of this fire here locally in Stevens County, specifically the Carpenter Road fire, communications in that area, some of it's just terrain related, so that makes it tough. The communications in that area have been horrid. But trying to get information from the incident command team, even between the firefighters on the ground, has been a nightmare. Brought in mobile communications. Senator Cantwell was here. We brought up the broadband. We are now working. It was amazing what you can do when you get a really mad senator who knows corporate VPs. That communications are going to be going forward to try and work with CenturyTel to try and light up a majority of the county.
The dark fiber they already have?
We're not going to get, well, yeah, so bottom line is, if you can look at a silver lining of a tragedy, maybe we don't have another one because we've got better communications. So, but that is something that, you know, we're going to be working on from the county's perspective. But if this group's going to form, which they are, we can use your input on that. You know, where are we missing folks so that we get those communications, so that we do get another fire somewhere else 10 years from now. Don't have this big blow up and lack of resources because they can't communicate. So that's why I was asking about transportation and public safety being more infrastructure related. Because to me, that's part of the recovery.
Yeah,
and that's part of the prevention.
Yeah. But I totally agree with us. The communication piece is just huge. And when North Okanagan County lost most of their cell and internet service, people were racing to public phones and calling people in different counties and saying, "What do you know about the fire that's bearing down on my house?" So, and that's a hell of a way to have to find out what's going on. So,
I didn't spell it well, but I did put up here preparedness as part of, because fire season's not over yet. And it'll probably be around next year too. So, I mean, as we talk about these things that we're trying to immediately solve, I think in the back of my mind, we have to think about how can we keep, build on it to do better next time, like the broadband and the communications and all that.
I think I like Leslie's comment about the infrastructure, including the communications.
You can merge them.
Is that going to transportation and public safety?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
That's okay.
Okay, one section that's like infrastructure / built environment.
Okay.
And I should explain, I have my blinders on, I always think
That's
about
okay.
flooding after the fire, so I was thinking about it being impacted from flooding, but you're kind of talking about resilience to be stronger before the next disaster, so you can come out of it.
So the other thing, and I'm sure the other counties are probably already thinking, and I know that tribes have all the same thing is, for those of you that don't know, our emergency manager just got hired 7 days before this happened.
Okay.
So the preparedness piece was, there was some there.
He barely had his email.
But we've been kind of teasing him a little bit about trial by fire, and that's not funny. But there will be an after incident report that will be done. I'm sure the state does some of that same thing. And it's not to say here's what went wrong. Some of it's here's what went right, and here's where you do need some improvement. And I think it's really important that we emphasize what went right also, because we don't want to lose that. And when you talk about preparedness, the reason you do that is prepared for the next time.
Exactly.
Not to kick yourself for what you did.
No. Nobody's born knowing how to do
You
this.
did the best you could.
Okay, so now, yes.
It's more on reaching out to the families that the public priority does. Schools just to know, have a better idea of which of their students are impacted specifically. So,
okay.
Good. Just kind of get to your point where people are calling.
Okay, now I have a couple questions. When do we want to meet next? And who wants to be in charge of some of these public sector, or these sectors? I'm going to email everybody out and say, here's the notes, but you know, this is the part.
Before we volunteer, for leading the sectors, can you give us just a day or so to think about the sectors and decide whether they're really what we think needs to happen?
Well, and I'd like to see what they did in Okanagan too.
Yeah.
See if there's a natural way to organize this.
And maybe if we have connections out of state, or look at what other people somewhere else have done in relationship to this Katrina.
Okay. Okay. So yes.
So yeah, Deborah, I might add on just that last point, and I'd encourage folks to discuss Arlington, Barrington. So after the SR5 reslide, one thing that really they did get right, I think, was more on economic redevelopment. So taking silver lining, we might say, out of a tragedy without capitalizing. They knew that when Diane Sawyer and the president visits, you get a lot of attention for your community. And there's a way in which to future maybe leverage that for some economic development. So they got tactical very quickly. They came up with a punch list, things that they already knew they had to do. And they brought the whole group together, and that was sort of the built-in agenda for everybody weighing in on where are we at, who's the lead, how do we get it done. I don't mean to dismay you if you put your thumb up, but that group is actually still meeting a year and a half later. But they've got a lot of great things to show for it, particularly federal money that came in, state money, and a lot of good things that come out of it.
And I took this on to facilitate today, knowing that it was going to be a 3 to 5 year process. I'm not saying I'm going to be in charge for 3 to 5 years, but this is, we're trying to make some economic long-term changes about what has happened now and how we can move forward in the future. So that working group of being prepared and moving forward. Okay, yeah.
One tiny piece that and maybe it's a vocal minority, but we keep hearing in our libraries people coming in with these sad stories of, level 2 evacuation, so we left, we returned home and our shop was wrong. And there's the Arden Fire example from, camera. And I think that's a public safety piece of, it just seems, and again, maybe it's just happening to a few people, but it seems like an element that's kind of taking a lot of people by surprise.
Insult to injury.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And they have to do a staff person of ours and
believe that somebody else.
It's just horrible.
Okay, so I've added that to the public safety kind of thought. So nobody has to volunteer today. How about that? You have to attend a meeting and not volunteer, except for when do we want to meet next? Because there's lots of meetings going on, and I know you're all at all different meetings.
Yeah.
1 week, 2 weeks?
Well, I think 1 week.
1 week?
Yeah, things are happening too fast.
Okay. Next week, same time, same bat channel?
So if you can give us the structural
Yeah, we'll work on
pieces
that.
to look at,
Yeah.
and we meet a week from now, to be able to get that structural piece taken care of.
Same time, same place. September 2nd, right here. Yes,
So are we just kind of focusing on this as a tri-county?
Tri-County, Tri-Tract. Yeah. I think that Okanagan and Chelan, geographically, they're farther away. They've got kind of an organization already started. I just, it would be difficult to melt this all together, but I do like the collaborative spirit we have with them as we move forward, because everybody's suffering from the same fire. Did you not hear from you in the vet? Did you want to add anything? No. Just want to make sure, I think I heard from everybody else.
He gets the job done, he don't talk much.
Even better. 3:30. 3:30, is that work out time-wise? Everybody okay? 3:30? 3:30 to 5? September 2nd, next Wednesday?
And did everybody sign the?
Oh, yes, please, everybody, check your signature, make sure you signed in. I will track you down if you didn't.
And please make your email address legible, because I'm gonna be the one sitting and transcribing it, and that's always fun, trying to backstock you and think, well, we're right here.
So it'll also be keeping people in the loop for information only, so there'll be a working group like us, and then there will also be for our legislative, state, and national folks, and anybody else that needs involvement. So we'll have the information to you.
Anybody and everybody.
Deborah?
Thank you all for coming. Oh, wait, did you guys have anything on this?
Yeah, Deborah, do you have the contact information for everybody who's on the Zoom?
I don't have Mike Bullard's, I don't think, but I will. Mike, can you email me? I'll track him down. I know somebody in the room that has it. How's that? And I've got Linda's and I've got yours and I've got Gina's. Thanks for setting up the Zoom, Mike, and I'll check in with you about next week.
Okay, sounds good.